Hey, what's up, Street Talks? Eric from the Eric from Street Diary blog. So, want to share with you some rando turbo thoughts I had on why live and why I live. So, I cannot speak this answer for you because I only know myself, but I'll try to share some of my own personal thoughts about life, purpose of life, and so forth. So, why I live. So, first and foremost, I kind of consider myself a big kid. I am so kind of curious about everything. And honestly, I think most of us are born curious. I mean, that's what makes us children. We're born curious. And that's why we become these like learning machines. But I think actually the problem with most schooling and education is the curiosity kind of gets beaten out of us, right? Is that it's like, oh, quit asking these stupid questions, you gotta listen to the rules and, listen to your teachers and so forth. And honestly, like most adults and most parents and stuff like that, they're just tired. They don't want to deal with stupid kids asking them all these kind of questions. And, even to the credit of Cindy, my friends, and stuff like that. Sometimes they kind of get quite tired of my incessant asking of just like random questions. But these are things that are actually really, really curious to me. And maybe part of the root of this is that this curiosity to solve these answers that just kind of make no sense to me. So a lot of this comes to like, photography, entrepreneurship, marketing, human psychology, human behavior, human desires, ethics, morals, sociology, and so forth. And so perhaps my greatest benefit or my greatest strength is I have the courage to ask these kind of seemingly stupid questions. And also I'm just lucky that like when I was a kid and I actually did have good mentors who did encourage me to ask these kind of like more crazy questions. And also being in America, being born in America and growing up in the States, I mean, like still there's lots of closed-mindedness in America, but still compared to other cultures, I think America's the least bad in terms of free thinking and so forth. So I wake up every single day and I'm curious. I'm like, what are some new things I'm going to create? What are some new things I'm going to discover? What are some new things I'm going to attempt? And so part of it is like, I approach life from like this perspective, like a scientist, is that I'm trying to conduct all these experiments and I'm using myself of the N of one experiment T on discovering some sort of new limits and so forth. So like let me give you a practical example. One of the things I'm like trying to fight against or go against is like like thinking about genetics and genetic potential. So for example, a very simple thing is like, oh, Asian guys are super duper, weak and, genetically inferior to like, these buff white guys or black guys or whatever it may be. Or, if you're an ectomorph and you have like, thin wrists or blah, blah. So I think talking about genetics is almost kind of like the new kind of like pseudoscientific racism. So let me give you a practical example. I could deadlift for 4 pounds, 4 plates, 4 pounds, right? Which is like 405 pounds. And like right now, I think I'm like, 171 pounds or something like that. And every time I do it, people are so surprised, like, whoa, you're like so strong, da da da. And I'm like, are you only saying this because I'm an Asian guy? If I was like, something else, would you not say the same thing? But anyways, so, I am personally kind of curious about the extent of the human body in general and the extent of the human mind and the body. And, I wasn't asked to be born, but here I am. So for me, I'm kind of interested in using myself as an experiment to see how far the human body could go. So for example, this is where powerlifting is so interesting to me. Is that I look at my dad. He's kind of a skinny dude. I'm like like pretty tall for an Asian guy. I'm like I think like 5'10", 5'10 and a half. Sometimes I lie, I say I'm 5'11", but I'm not like 7 foot tall, and I'm not like, I don't have a huge hulking, frame. But, I'm not going to let that discourage me because, I mean, what's the point of just kind of blaming genetics or stuff like that, because like it's kind of like this like learned helplessness. To me, it's more about the courage than the ultimate strength. Because like, you know, Eddie Hall could deadlift 1,000 pounds. I probably could never deadlift 1,000 pounds, nor am I that interested in deadlifting 1,000 pounds. But I'm just kind of curious to see how far I could push myself and the extent of my human body, and just kind of recording, tracking the, just gains and stuff like that. And just kind of, I guess there's this joy I get of like self-experimentation and trying out unorthodox strategies. And so perhaps part of it is like kind of part philosopher, part like scientist is trying to discover some new secrets about the human body or the limits. So a very basic one that I've been doing for quite a while is, just attempting a new PR every single week, a new 1 rep max every week. And all I do in my deadlift and squat and, bench is just try to add 5 pounds week over week. So let's say, last week I deadlifted 445 pounds. I'll try 450 pounds this week, and I'll just put a little 2.5 on each side. And I might get it up, I might not get it up. Not that big of a deal. I'm just more interested in whether I had the courage and I didn't exhibit fear in myself when I'm doing it. And that's kind of what drives me. And also, growing up in this crazy world that we got, one of the big things that actually that drives me is that I'm so grateful of all the people who have helped empower me to get me where I am now. And I feel like it actually is my duty and my obligation to kind of give back. And it's not really from this like kind of moralistic or ethical thing. It's just, it's just nice because like, I remember it's more of like this overflowing sense of gratitude. I remember what it was like being a kid without much resources and, growing up with like a single mom and stuff like that, right? And so, so grateful for my mom, all my mentors and stuff like that. And so I feel like kind of giving back, it's kind of like an externalization of your ego, is that when you meet other young kids who kind of remind you of what you were like when you're their age, you want to help augment them to their personal maximum because in them you see a little bit of yourself. So perhaps maybe it's like this externalization of your own ego. And also just a practical thing is if you're mentoring somebody or helping somebody and you see them becoming more epic and powerful, that's good for your ego because they kind of like become like your pseudo disciple or whatever. And also part of it too is that like I feel like there's so much misinformation out there and like a lot of things which have disempowered me. And I just know how shitty it feels. And so I like to share my thoughts and my experiences and what's worked for me, what hasn't worked for me, because maybe I just have this like innate love of humanity, is that I want to empower all human beings to their personal maximum. Obviously, it's not going to work for everybody, but my driving philosophy is if my idea or thoughts or method or whatever even has like a 0.01 chance of empowering another human being on planet Earth, it's kind of worth sharing. And also just like from a personal benefit, to talk and to share and to think, to meditate, to reflect, it's personally beneficial to me because it gives me an opportunity to reflect on myself and flesh out my thoughts. And something that I think a lot of people don't understand is there is a certain joy of thinking, right? Is when you're thinking, you're active, you feel alive, you feel kind of superhuman. And one thing I'm always trying to chase is like kind of getting to a zen zone or like a sense of where like you feel like your power overwhelming in terms of physical abilities, mental abilities, and you kind of become more than yourself. And generally I get this when I'm writing, I'm making videos, I'm teaching and so forth. And so I'm always seeking that feeling of being in the zone. So to me it's more of like a physiological sensation where I'm drinking a lot of coffee, I've slept very well, like 10 to 12 hours, and I'm kind of working at my peak capacity. And even when I'm powerlifting or whatever and I'm like achieving new PRs, it's more of like the extreme happiness and the joy of the hormonal flush of knowing that you've pushed your body to a new limit, and just the accompanying physiological sensation that you are becoming stronger. And so why do I live? I'm kind of curious about seeing how far I could push my artistry, my physical abilities, my knowledge and information and so forth, and trying to share that with other people. Because for me, I'm like, I follow in the footsteps of my best friend Seneca. He's like, you give me all the knowledge and the wisdom in the world, but if I couldn't share it with nobody else, I wouldn't really care for it. And I feel the same way too. Is that knowledge that cannot be shared or distributed with other people, it's kind of not worth really having. And so I think it's kind of getting this barbell between extreme altruism and also extreme selfishness. I live a very selfish life where, I'm just trying to augment my own thoughts and my own ideas, and I try to block out the outside world. But at the same time, I try to practice like extreme altruism where I try to take my ideas and share with as many people as I can. And ultimately, I'm always a little bit sus of myself and my own intentions and stuff like that. But at the same time, I don't really care either too much. Is that like, I personally don't believe in this like conscious afterlife. I personally don't believe in a heaven and a hell. So, once I'm dead, bada bing, bada boom, I'm gone. And, all that's gonna be left behind are maybe these videos, audios, photos, texts and stuff like that, and my hypothetical future children, or the thoughts through other people's. So to me, it's just like a very basic thing is, I want to feel good. Like I want to maximize my own potential every single day, just out of pure personal curiosity of seeing how far I could take it. And I think a lot of the feeling of happiness and joy comes from the physical or the physiological. So basic things like do not try to naively optimize your sleep, right? Like, in fact, I try to get more sleep. I'm like, I feel the most maximal when I get at least 10 to 12 hours. And so even now, like in the evenings, I could try to squeeze out a little bit more work by drinking more coffee. I'll try to limit my caffeine intake after dinner and in the evening, and just use that time to just kind of like, take a mini nap or read a book or try to relax myself so I can sleep. Because I think the harder you go during the day, the harder you got to sleep too. Obviously, just continuing to work out really hard, eat lots of meat, recover, tempting new ideas, creating new videos, and trying to get deeper in thoughts. Also, part of it is trying to become more like creatively productive. Because, I could make 100 videos a day, but I feel like if I run out of steam or if I don't have an interesting idea, it's not kind of worth doing. So right now, with blogging, vlogging, whatever, I'm just trying to see how much I could produce and how deep these ideas could be. But ultimately, all information, everything is just kind of a stream. You're always in a sense of becoming. We're always in a state of flux. So moral of the story is, don't stress yourself out too much. Live life with happiness, joy, and frolic a lot, dance a lot, share a lot of your joy, and just see how you could achieve your personal maximum. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. Peace out.